moving water. We're going to talk about moving water now. So plants in moving water.
Replicating in a sort of like a fast-moving sort of stream.
Yeah, or an eco stream rather than an eco pond. You've got an eco stream. You've got the sort of like the skimmer or the intake bay. You can have a sort of like an eco stream and then have, you know, like a stream waterfall box. So if you think of the eco stream, let's do a cross section of this section here now. So if you do the same sort of, probably not actually, just thinking about it, that's the pond. Then I would do the eco stream, which would be more like this. So moving water essentially is moving that nutrients. So you can still have your plants growing in the stream. This is where the stream is, water level. I would run it actually lower, so then you've got a bit more of an overflow. So which plants would survive? All of them, essentially. Now, if you wanted to plant up here, this is one of the reasons why I drew it out, is you might have streamer weed, and that's your oxygenating weed, or vallisneria, which is eelgrass. And also there's low nutrition species, so calatrese likes very slow, nutrient poor water. You've got Ranunculus aquatilis, or crow's foot, which will grow in some of the streams, mainly in chalk streams though, rather than the Norfolk Broads. But it's essentially the true aquatics growing in. We talked about nufas, so they can be being the head pulled underneath, so they're more pond lilies rather than water lilies. So pond lilies can grow in moving water. A lot of the plants will adapt. So if you think of the bog sections, these sections here, a lot of those plants would grow in those sections. And you can always create a bigger section and have the fast moving water. So you could actually do a sort of like a wider stream, and then have your stones in there, and then that's all planting. It doesn't need to be, and then that can meander. So if you think of the liner, so if you think of that's your meandering stream, so if you think of that, this all could be this section here, yeah, soil. So all of that could be a moisture loving area. So in the flow, so if you think of all true aquatics like willow moss, it will grow in moving water. So there's lots of moss, there's lots of other plants that will grow in that sort of like, they have to hang on in the flood, and then in the summer, then they go again. So mosses, lichens, it really depends on how fast the water is. If they can hang on, they'll grow, because it's not all going to be fast all the time. But if it's slow moving water or a stream, if it's static, like I was saying earlier, you could use good quality topsoil, providing that you've got a liner, as in underlay. So you've got the waterproof bag, which is this one here. That's the waterproof membrane. Yep. Then what you could do is you could have, I'm going to draw it in pink, you could just have a underlay or overlay just to create that planting pocket. And you would have one underneath the stones as well, and I would put one under the gravel. So that's your overlay, liner, underlay, and then creating the planting pockets, like you've got the mesh planters, and then you plant in there. So then you're not getting a lot of, if you think of lots of moving water, it's not going to start washing this all out, because you've got that membrane. And it doesn't matter what you use, as long as it's fish safe or aquatic safe. But in these essentially pockets, you could create those sections, or planting pockets, if you like. So what you're essentially doing is you're protecting the plant from water moving the soil away. So as long as it's got that nutrient rich media or the nutrient rich water, then the plants will grow. So pondless waterfall plants, what I tend to do in pondless waterfalls is, are you going to have it on all the time? Are you going to have the pondless waterfall on a timer? If you're not going to have it on all the time, let's say that you've got a second home, or your client has got a second home, and you're going to have the pondless running every weekend. In the week, the plants will dry out. So if you've got a stream, so now we're coming back, instead of an ecosystem pond and this being 2 foot deep or whatever, let's just say that this is 3 inches deep now. This is all going to dry out very quickly. But if you've got it on a timer, let's say half an hour a day at night, because that's the most efficient time to water, is if you water it in the day, it will evaporate, it will make all the stones wet, blah, 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 blah. And then they'll evaporate more. So thinking about a pondless waterfall, you've got the water in motion. So let's now say, turn this into a stream going into a basin. So it's not a skimmer anymore, it's just a pondless basin reservoir, and there's your pump vault in there, no skimmer, so your pump's in there. So all of this water is all going to end up in there when it's off. So as long as these beds are big enough, 3 inches of soil, they will be pots. So as long as it's on every day to irrigate it, you'll be fine. Let's say that was gravel, you're not going to have enough moisture in there. So aquatic plants in pondlesses I avoid unless they're going to be on all the time. If they're going to be on all the time, then it's fine. You can grow marginals, moisture loving, anything you want in those zones 1 and zones 2, and normally on the smaller side. So if you're building a large pondless, then you could put irises in a large pondless like the Waterfalls over there. You could create a pocket, like this on the side, and have a real big planting pocket and put some nice aquatic irises in there. I would tend to go with moisture loving and some more ornamental ones rather than the real big thugs, but the real big thugs are normally zones 2 and 3 rather than 1 and 2. So going back to the original drawing, it's more sort of like the ornamental. So Japanese, the camphor, iris camphor, that would be a lovely, or rose queen would be a lovely one for pondless waterfalls, as long as you've got it on a timer. If you're building small pondlesses, you can have smaller plants and it's a lot more detailed. But again, that goes with anything. That goes with the same with a pond or a pondless. Yep, plant pockets with soil rather than gravel. So if you're just building a pondless to, you see a lot of the pondlesses, we've got moss in them. Some will survive and some won't, but we've not got aquatic plants in those pondlesses because they're not on all the time. With the Waterfalls, you've got some planting pockets, and that's another thing that you could do if you know how to do a wicking with. So if you think of a waterfall section now, this is a side view of a waterfall on the edge. Only a small basin. You could create a planting pocket on the top in a corner. So you could put a great big stone, great big stone, great big stone, and then this is a planting pocket now. So those stones are moved in, and then you go back to, but the bag goes on top of the aqua block, not the gravel.
That's a liner bag or the underlay bag?
Underlay bag. And then you've got the soil in there. So now we're on top of a basin that can fluctuate, yes? So the water level could be up here, depending on whatever. When water is in motion, it could drop down to here, yeah? So then what you need to do is you need to make sure that the pondlet, if it's on all the time, you need to make sure that you've got some fleece or geo or capillary matting into the water, so it's like a wick, like a candle. So you can create those bog pockets on top of a pondless with the use of geotextile.
And that bit that's dipped down into the reservoir,
It's a wick.
soak the water up and keep the plant alive by keeping the moisture.
Yep. Or you turn the waterfall off, the water level rises in the basin, flooding this, and then it goes back down. So if you've got the water in motion all the time, it's all up in the flow, and this may potentially dry out. So having it off for half an hour a day would irrigate that bog pocket on top of the basin. It is complicated, but at the same time we're talking about world-class water features, a lot of attention to detail. So we're talking about advanced planting pockets.
But it's just one way to keep it irrigated.
Yep.